I've heard for a while that Fobi sells cables that are generally better than the competition, and during the middle of a meeting, I pointed out, I want to see it. Let's bring some of these cables in and let's actually prove it. Found some interesting things. Coming up next, right here on Fobi Medical. All right, everyone. I have a selection of cables. Some of them are Fobi line cables, and some of them are going to be OEM. Aftermarket, we have some foreign cables. I think these ones here are some demos from China, and some OEM. Let's go ahead and take a look. There are a lot of things you guys should know about cables. Strain relief is extremely important. There's generally no strain relief down here at the connector port because it's just going to pop off. If you stress this cable, it's just going to yank it right off. This right here is a major point of failure where the soft cable meets a rigid structure, and you're going to see that in some of the other ones. There's short strain reliefs, which are like these ones. There's longer strain reliefs. I'll give you an example of that later. But the thing about the strain reliefs is you have to have a longer soft structure without too many orifices or places where material will stay, because they're very difficult to clean. So that's the other thing that we have to consider when we talk about all these cables, is they have to be cleanable and they have to be designed with the intent for longevity. So first, let's take a look at these connectors. Now, I think all these cables that I have on the table are going to have a similar style connector where there's a button, and this will grab onto the button. You can see here there is a plastic spring that's basically molded into this clamp. The problem is the retention is based on the molded clamp. So if this guy fatigues, which they do, they also get crushed, the staff will still continue to try and use these cables even though all the retention is based on that molded in plastic spring. So on the underside of these guys, you can see it's exposed, but it's pretty clean. These ones here have very few places where material can cling on and hide in low crevices. But the problem is that artifact happens when you don't have a good connection between the button, ECG electrode, and the clamp. So what we're going to do is we're going to change out the cables if this guy fatigues even a little bit, because when it loses the retention on the buttons, the whole cable's garbage, and that's lost money. So some other companies had another concept. You can see this is another ECG cable. Here you can see the strain relief, lots of little crevices for material to end up in there, and they do. There's going to be blood that gets up in here, there's going to be all sorts of material that gets up in there, and it's impossible to clean. So this kind of strain relief, it is better than some of these, the really short ones, but it's worse because it's got a lot of little areas for things to clean. Now take a look at this. We have a multi-part cable, whereas all the conductors have their own strand, and it leaves this ribbing down the length of the cable, which is also way more difficult to clean than smooth cables. And it's true, you can separate these out, and generally people will, to a certain point, and then they won't separate them anymore. See that? So it's up to the user to actually divvy up the cables. This is the cheapest set here. These ones have a better connector, in that it's a spring loaded, like a metal spring loaded connector, where it actually pinches onto the button. You see that? But the problem is inside the structure are many places that will be absolutely impossible to clean. Look around this button right there. You're going to have stuff in and around this button. It's just going to happen. But it is a nice contact point. These ones here, I hardly ever have failures at this part of the electrode. Mainly we get rid of these ones here because they get damaged, they get yanked, or because these ones here, they just get really, really dirty. So this is the cheapest set that I have here on the table. Let's go into another one. This is definitely a design improvement. You can see that here there are short, really stubby strain reliefs. So almost all cables fail where the soft material meets the rigid material. And this is a design feature to kind of limit that failure. But the problem is these stubby strain reliefs, you can see I'm really forcing that cable. It's not really moving. It's not moving, so it's still going to fail at the exact same point right here. So really, that's just the junction between the cable and the molded plug. It's not really a strain relief at all. However, there are some good things. Individual strand cables, they have a cable comb that comes with it. You can see you could remove that if you want, but that's designed to limit the amount of tangle that you get on the cables. So you move the comb further down and it organizes the cables. And this type of material, it feels like a silicone jacket. It's a good material. Maybe PVC. Nah, it's not PVC. It feels like a good material, but here you can see a metal clamp. The metal clamp is going to have really good contact, but these are the most problematic of all the connectors, because see how they like to clamp down? These are pinchable connectors, and these ones do pinch the patient. You can see it. It's a sharp little point, and that's very interesting because these ones are some of the best clamps that you can get. They're way better than any of those, but for safety, if the patient has body hair or anything like that, you can expect it's going to get caught up in there, and it's probably going to injure a patient, or at least, you know, pinch them a little bit. But other than that, clean clamps. You can see the tolerance. They're very tight, so you're not going to get too much material up inside them. Almost no strain relief at the clamp, but that's okay. Like I said, it'll yank it off. This is a good set of cables, except these guys right here are known for pinching the patient. And the strain relief is really short, so that's going to be a failure item anyway. So this is what brought me to the Fobi cables. You can see we have the cables with the orange. There's going to be a common thing with Fobi cables is that they have a little orange dot on them. These are very interesting. The first thing that grabbed me, or lack of the pun, check these connectors out. You see that? So it is a pinch style connector, but they have a pinch guard on there by molding the top part of the clamp. So you can't pinch the patient, or at least if you could, it's not going to be very easy, that's for sure, because they molded it in to prevent pinching. See? I can't do it even if I push down on it. It just won't happen. So that's good. So the tolerances on the clamps are pretty tight. There is a larger area for stuff to get underneath, but that's going to be inherent to the design because you have to have more material in order to have the pinch prevention. That's okay. The tolerances are pretty tight. Down here you can see the orange pin, which also indicates that these are one of the Fobi cables. Looks like it's a pretty good cable. The material is the same type of silicone cabling that you've seen on the other one. That does help with being a tangle-free cable set. And there is a cable comb, you can see right there, just like the other set. But here's something interesting. Take a look down here. So this is the point of failure on most cables, is going to be where the soft structure meets the rigid structure. And Fobi cables has a long dingle hopper of a strain relief. You see that? And when I pull on the cables, they pull on those strain reliefs too. So that actually eases the burden on this point right here. And I don't honestly think it's going to fail there. You see, if I even pull one cable, it flexes the whole entire structure. So that means that is going to be a longer life cable set than this one over here. Plus it's got the built-in patient pinch prevention. This is going to be a long life cable set, I guarantee it. Here's another competing product. It might be cheaper. It feels cheaper in the hand, that's for sure. Oh yeah. You can hear the difference. This one's very solid. This one here, it feels like it's hollow on the inside, but this is what most of the competitor cables are. It does have a longer strain relief right here, albeit definitely shorter than the Fobi strain relief. It's very comparable to an OEM strain relief. A little bit longer by a millimeter or so. Connector does feel hollow. Maybe I should do a cross section of one of those and take a look. There's a cable comb. These feel more like a PVC cable. PVC is just polyvinyl chloride. It's plastic, basically. And any of you guys that have had multimeter leads, you know that there's either the good feeling multimeter leads or there's the very cheap ones. This feels like PVC. Take a look down here. Again, see the strain reliefs? There is a strain relief built into these clamps, kind of, I guess. It's not flexing. You can see I'm pushing on it pretty good. But look at all those holes. The clamp is the dirtiest part of the entire cable set. All these holes down here are where it's going to collect blood and material, and you cannot clean that out. I don't care who you are, you can't clean that out. There's some lips down here underneath the clamp, and that lip is also going to be impossible to clean out, so you'll get blood and stuff that's up here where the electrode contact surface is molded into the plastic. It's got the plastic spring, and again, the entire retention of this clamp, which validates this whole cable, is based on that plastic spring. So if it cracks, which is usually what happens, or it fatigues, which means it's not going to clamp as tightly, then this one here is going to start generating an artifact. Even if it's on one lead, that's going to garbage your entire set. You're going to throw it right out. If you get blood up and in here, you can be cited for that. You're going to have to throw it out. So it does have a cable comb. Very surprised at how cheap that connector feels. I wonder if these pins slide around as well. These are your contact points for your trunk cable. I wonder if I can move them with my finger, because it definitely feels hollow and cheap. So that's ECG electrodes. Let's take a look at the Fobi SPO2 cables, because these are some of them that I really wanted to take a look at. Now, there's not too much difference in SPO2, right? You would think so. But this SPO2 cable, it's got the same exact features that I talked about these ones over here. As a plus, it's got a long, solid strain relief. You see that? SPO2 cables often fail right here or right here where the cable meets the rigid structure. Long, flexible strain relief on this guy. Long, flexible strain relief on the connector. This connector feels like it's solid, molded. Very nice, it's not hollow. And this is going to be a design improvement over the OEM. So take a look at the light guards, which are the shields on the sides. The light guards on this guy are solid plastic. Your finger pops in there, no problem at all. And usually on the OEM, that's when you have these white rubber flaps on the side, and they do very little functionally, but they do get dirty, and they do just flop around with the patient's finger inserted. But this guy here, you can see it's got solid plastic, easy to clean. All you gotta do is wipe it down, and most of the clamp is solid, so if you do get something on it, all you gotta do is wash it down and press on. You can see the LEDs inside it. Very nice. Soft pillows on the top and the bottom for the finger. I would definitely say that's softer than OEM, because I can move my finger around quite a bit inside it. It's a good SPO2 probe. Take a look at this one. Now this is the cable that is going to get damaged the most, because this one is around the patient bed. It's going to be around wheelchairs. It's going to be around a lot of different things. These cables always fail, again, where the strain relief meets. This has got the soft, flexible strain reliefs. It's got good clamps, really good spring pressure on those retention hooks right there. And it's got the lockdown shield, which when it's closed, it's on there pretty good. Long, smooth strain relief. Silicone jacketed, actually that's a large diameter trunk cable. large diameter, and it's got a noise suppression choke on the cable. So that feels like a really good cable. These silicone jacketed cables, they're usually the ones that are anti-tangle, so all you gotta do is undo this, throw it, and it'll basically unwind itself. You can kind of see how it wants to do it now. So that is a good feeling cable. So guys, there is definitely a difference between the cables that are sold by competitors and the cables that we have personally picked out to sell here at Fobi Medical. These ones that have an orange indicator on them, you can see right there. It looks like they took a lot of design thought process into their product. Whereas some of the other ones, it's clear that it's just the cheapest product that they could produce. Some of them have some good intentions, but they just came off a little short. But the Phobia cables do seem to have the most features for the price. And that's interesting. I was a little pessimistic when I unraveled all these cables and started into this video, but after taking a look at the other options versus the Phobia cables, I would have to agree that these are probably some of the best ones I have ever seen.